Andrew Ejapamesa is a member of parliament for Second D. He's also a legal practitioner. You're still practicing, right?
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, even though I have license to practice, but since I went into parliament,
so
I've
the
never
reference should be
really been
you're
an active
a lawyer.
practitioner. Yes,
You're a lawyer. Okay. Andrew Ejapamesa is a member of parliament for Second D. He's a lawyer. Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure to be here. Good morning.
Former broadcaster is also here. Member of parliament for Tamale North, Alhassan Suhini. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Ru.
Yeah. And we know that there are a lot of things that we can't talk about. But I have to ask, how was your weekend over?
Alhamdulillah, it was beautiful. We give God the glory. I had to attend a few social programs. One being the sad adwa of our mate at Ganasco, Fanny. We called him Muniru. His wife passed, actually. And the adwa was yesterday.
Where was he held?
Amomole.
Okay.
Yes. And he works at ADB.
Okay.
My heartfelt condolences once again to him, to the children, and to the family of our sister, Humu.
How was your weekend, sir?
Well, after 1 week of community engagement in my constituency, yesterday was pretty restful. Of course,
you came back
climax. Yes,
on Saturday.
I came Saturday night.
Okay.
Got into Accra around 10 p.m.
Right.
Because
you drove straight.
I accompanied the
straight from.
Yes, from Secondly. The vice president came to town to join the people of Isikado to celebrate the annual Kuntum festival. So that was
you
the
drove
climax.
straight to home.
Yes, straight home. What are you trying to insinuate?
Mischief.
No, you know, this morning you saw Suhini, but he arrived late, so that's why. That's what I want to know.
I drove straight home.
But over the weekend was also eventful. We have what we call a mini fair for the Joy Habitat fair. So MPs are rich. Just in case you want to take part.
Who told you that?
You can go for a mortgage or buy or have some down payment for some of the properties that are on display. It was at the Chimota Mall. We have one next week that will be at the West Hills Mall. So please make sure that on the 17th and 18th you pass through there. Okay, we'll be happy.
Very well. We'll see.
Fantastic.
Maybe those are the.
But over the weekend too, the president was at Adan. We also had him make commentary on a number of issues, but particularly the free senior high school double track system that is expected to be rolled out the next academic year. And the president is insisting it won't affect the quality of education. And he's quoted here, the system will not destroy our educational system as the professional naysayers would want you to believe. We don't know who the naysayers are, but I'm sure those who are speaking against it. On the contrary, this system will reduce class sizes, increase contact hours between teachers and students, as well as increase the number of holidays. The president seems to be happy on this very often.
Yes. Good morning once again, and to our cherished viewers this morning. Extremely reassuring coming from the president, because over the past couple of weeks, we've all heard professional naysayers, trying to poo-poo this system that clearly is intended to resolve a problem that we have. One school of thought, and I hear my friends in the NDC articulating that look, we advised you that build all the classrooms before you start the implementation of this policy. Well, build all the classrooms whilst 100,000 students stay away until the classrooms are built? Clearly not. Whose child should stay at home? These are Ghanaian children. And the view that has been put across by the Minister of Education, the Ghana Education Service, to the effect that, look, we have infrastructure that is empty half the year anyway. So why don't we sweat it? Why don't we derive maximum benefit from our infrastructure so that we can afford the 100,000 people who ordinarily would be staying at home go to school. So split them into two, divide the school year so that 365 days are facilities that we've used huge sums of money to put up over the years can be used. He and I attend some church in Tema every now and then. They have 2 services. Why don't they build separate churches for the people who want to attend church at various times? But it's worthy that the facilities are used efficiently. And so many churches organize various services in a day for various categories of people. Same principle that is being extended to our educational system to make sure that no Ghanaian child who has qualified to be in SHS is left behind. And I think it's something that we should all applaud. In any event, it is not forever. And even if it's extended to be a 2-semester system forever, and we have maximum benefit of the use of our assets as a country, I think it is something that is worth commending, rather than the criticism and the attribution that does not exist that they seek to put to this, that it is going to destroy the quality of our education. Same teachers, plus some additional complement that is going to ensure that our children, our young brothers and sisters, will have the benefit of good quality education from the top class schools where many people desire to attend, but for want of space are unable to go. So I'm extremely gratified that His Excellency the President has given assurances to the people of Ghana that this policy is not going to affect the quality of our education.
Okay. We have on the line, before we come to you, the Public Relations Officer for the Ministry of Education, Ekon Vincent. Good morning to you, Ekon.
Good morning, my brother. How are you?
I'm good, sir. And the President has been harping on the fact that the double track system to be implemented for the senior high schools in the next academic year has more advantages than what the so-called professional naysayers have been saying. But we know a critical part of this would be the recruitment process to be undertaken for at least, we're told estimatedly, 8,000 more teachers to complement what we already have. Is that true?
A very good morning to you and your cherished viewers. I must say that teachers are seen as the center of education, and of course, quality education, if I must say. And so for us to be able to highly implement the double track system, I necessarily call it the semester system, because that is really the policy guideline for us. You cannot do without teachers. And for that matter, government is anticipating and actually planning towards recruiting almost or close to 9,000 teachers for us to be able to complement the already existing teachers that we have, so that we can implement excellently the double track system that we deem to, as it were, implement by September 2018, 2019. Plans are far advanced. We hope to make sure that we do not have some sort of challenges as far as the implementation is concerned. But let's see.
The number, what number exactly? Because this is senior high school, and so we know the schools, the estimated number of pupils, etc. So how many teachers is the Education Ministry or the Ghana Education Service intending to recruit?
Per our calculations, we hope to recruit close to 9,000 teachers.
Hello, Vincent. Your line is breaking. Please reposition and we can hear the number. You said the number is going to be in estimation?
Close to 9,000 teachers. That is the estimation from the Ghana Education Service.
Close to 9,000. What does it mean? Either 9,000 or near 9,000?
near 9,000.
Okay. So have you started the recruitment process, knowing that I think the senior high school calendar, or so-called the next academic year, will be starting in September?
My brother, if you check the number of teachers that registered on the NAPCO, it clearly tells you that we have a pool of teachers in this country, about 43,000 teachers, trained teachers for that matter, registered on the NAPCO. Clearly tells you that there is no difficulty at all in making sure that we get 9,000 teachers in this country to be recruited to embark on the double track system that we all desire to have in September. We have not started the recruitment processes, true, but this week, next week, we hope to start the recruitment process.
Now, I think this will be interesting for the parents, and I think that we have to commend the ministry, especially trying to put all this together. But it means that we're recruiting through NAPCO, is that it?
I have not said so. What I said was that we have the pool of the teachers, and I use NAPCO as an example to indicate that we have the pool of trained teachers who are unemployed. So it is no difficulty at all for the ministry or the Ghana Education Service to engage close to 9,000 teachers in this country.
Well, the teachers who teach at senior high school, usually what's the qualification that is needed for them to be employed there?
You need to be a trained teacher.
What sort of trained teacher, please?
You need to be a trained teacher. You must have gone through the process to have a BEd or trained in the colleges of education. Now, our college of education is now going to be university colleges. Okay. So you need to have been trained. You need to have a certificate in education before you can teach in a public senior high school.
That's great. For you, the education ministry, if you do the recruitment and the way they will teach, does the issue of experience come to mind at all? Is it a benchmark that you tend to look at?
We are going to have a blend of experience and new ones. Of course, we are not going to put all the newly recruited teachers on a track or just one track. So today, even let's use 2017 or 2016 as an example. If teachers were employed in 2017, those new teachers have to go to blend with the experienced ones there. So it's not going to be that the newly recruited teachers are going to be on one track where you are going to only new teachers there. No, teachers are going to be placed based on programs or based on subject area. So of course you are going to have the old ones, the experienced ones, and the new ones to be on the track. So it is neither here nor there that new teachers are going to be on the track, which is going to bring a problem of inexperience, if I should say.
Oh, okay. That's commendable too. What's the role or the number of the teachers currently at the senior high school level?
Well, very difficult for me to say. I may have to watch that again from the Ghana Education Service.
Okay. But then the last one. We're told that a number of schools, or not all the schools, will be partaking in this. How many schools will be participating in the double track rollout?
Well, you and I know that in this country we have some schools that are oversubscribed. We have some schools that are less subscribed. We can mention some of them. The ones that are oversubscribed are the ones, of course, that is going to have the double track. There are some schools that are less subscribed. If you look at the CSSPS, when I say yes, Roland.
I asked the question: how many schools will be participating?
That is what I'm explaining to you. I'm explaining that we have a choice file, okay? Students at the BEC level, after they wrote their exam, chose a number of schools, chose the schools they want to be in. Do you understand? So when you look at the choice file, the schools that are oversubscribed, those are the schools that we are going to have the double track. So indeed, the double track, per the records and the statistics from the Ghana Education Service, is not going to be implemented in all schools, but rather it's going to be implemented in schools that are oversubscribed. For example, you choose Achimota School. You and I know that Achimota School in a year can take about 700 or even up to 1,000. but you have over 10,000 people choosing that school.
Echo, we know about Achimota School, so I'm asking the Achimota School and their types and the likes. How many of them? That's what
I'm saying, that it depends on the choice file. Choice file means that how many registrants from the BSc level were able to choose those schools. As we speak, we have not been able to come out with the total number, but we anticipate over 400 because those schools are classified as Class A and Class B schools. It's even possible that Class C schools can be part of the double track because it depends on the number of students who have been able to choose that particular school.
Okay,
if you choose, if a school is hold on, if a school is having about 500 people, yet the school can take about 700. You can't implement double track school in that particular school.
All right, Echo. If we have a headline on myjoyonline.com that PRO for Education Ministry says at least 400 senior high schools will participate, would that be fair?
I don't have a problem, but I'm saying that it depends.
Okay, so we've gotten a number. It's 400.
Listen, I'm saying that.
Echo, thank you.
It depends on the choice file. You understand?
Okay, so it means that so we don't know until the school the postings are done. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, because postings are done based on merit and programs.
Yes, I do understand. So how will you post the teachers then? When are you going to post them for them to settle in, get ready before they start teaching?
That is supposed to be done by GES and NACA based on programs and the subject areas of the teachers. NACA is the National Council for Curriculum Assessment.
All right. Echo Vincent, I've enjoyed the conversation with you, and thanks for the education as well. At least we're getting it every day. Yeah. So your point in this.
Did you say education or miseducation?
Ministry of Education. Well, we got some inputs, great education from him.
I see. You must be a genius then, because I am left confused.
Why?
And maybe...
Which question do you want to ask?
Maybe I'm just dumb. If
you can't be dumb.
If you consider that to be education, then I have to question my IQ level, because really, I was left with more questions than answers. By the way, let me say good morning to you, good morning to my colleague, and good morning to our viewers. I think that, you see, the problem with this all-important policy of making our secondary education free is not even with the attempt that this government is making to implement it, but it's with the confusion and how that confusion threatens the future of secondary education. I was on this platform the last time, and I recounted to you some of my fears, especially looking at the fact that the secondary education level for a very long time has been very resilient and has remained the place of choice for parents as far as public secondary education is concerned for the awards, unlike what we have pertaining at the basic level and even in some cases at the tertiary level. Parents always in the past sought, admissions for the awards when it came to public secondary education in the public secondary schools, but at the basic, they went for private. Tertiary, they preferred the SHS, which are private, and the central universities. But I fear that the way this all-important policy is being administered as the government goes, secondary education is in the long run going to have a blow that will come back.
Be implemented.
That will come back to haunt you and I. You see, just give ourselves 5 years down the line, or even less. We are currently battling with just the first years. Now we are going to enroll second year students. And we are considering a double track. Then there will be the third years.
Government said by then, structures would have been built.
You see, that's what I'm saying. The problem is not even with the policy, because it's an all-important, policy. But the way it is clear now that this government does not have a plan, they like former President Mahama said, acting as if they are implementing a governance as you go. You know, pay as you go. So as and when the problems emerge, then they firefight and bring out things that leave all of us confused. But in all of this, what saddens me is the way the president is very, very sharp at insulting, you know, people with opinions different from his. So he means Professor Ivan Adai-Mensah is a professional naysayer. Is that what the president is saying? That an academician, an accomplished one at that, such as Ivan Adai-Mensah, is a professional naysayer. Professor Nana Jane Opoku, the first, you know, female vice chancellor this country has ever had, is a professional naysayer. And guess what? This is said by somebody who does not even have, you know, the qualification, a quarter of the qualification Professor Ivan Adai-Mensah has when it comes to education. And again, this is said by somebody who has lived the better part of his life criticizing people.
What are you talking about, the president?
The president. He has lived the better part of his life criticizing people.
Oh, but that's not fair. He was a lawyer. He's been a lawyer of good repute.
As an adult, we were told, remember, before the elections.
You mean his political life?
His political life. Remember, we were told before the elections that he has led a lot of demonstrations. He has, you know, he has been criticizing people.
But is that not advocacy?
He has been what is advocacy? When when you're advocating, are you not, you know, going to criticize one and project the other? So he has lived the better part of his life as a critic. And so it is so sad that he is unable to take criticism. So whether it's the issue of his 110 ministers, he responds with insults. Whether it's the issue of people having, you know, genuine concerns about the agreement between Ghana and the United States of America, he responds with insults. It's the issue of bringing about ideas that will make sure that this all-important policy of free SHS is implemented in a way that it will not affect secondary education.
So your point is that the way it's being implemented, it will be problematic.
He responds with insult. I mean, look, as for the quality of education, just read Jennifer Graves' assessment on the impact that the double track system has on quality of education. Jennifer Graves, you know, did this research under the Department of Economics in California.
Well, I have it here, and she says that multi-track year-round calendars have a detrimental effect on academic achievement.
Fantastic.
Primarily in the next few years.
Fantastic.
It says previous estimates put cost savings at between 5 to 15%.
Yes. So the point,
but she says ultimately, they
negatively impact
academic achievement roughly.
So yes, you will make some cost savings like they are trying to do, but you see, all of this could have even been avoided if they had listened to, you know, good counsel and sat back to plan this well, like the NDC was.
And her research was around California.
Because you see, we have never been against free SHS, so that is why it is sad when we are described as people being against free SHS. Never. Go and listen carefully to all the arguments in the past. The NDC has never been against free SHS. We have been against the ad hoc and unplanned implementation of free SHS and have predicted and cautioned against the repercussions that will come if we go that way. And that is why the finance minister today himself, maybe he has joined the Professional Naysayers Association, says that, look, how do you bring about a policy like this that will make him, someone who is capable of paying, you know, for 10 people, not have to pay? Roland, people are making payments of close to 7,000, 8,000 for their children to access daycare, you know, education, nursery education.
In Ghana.
In Ghana. And yet when these same children get to secondary level, you saddle a government that is unable to provide free education with their bill. I mean, does it make sense? Why don't you find a way of ensuring that there is equity? And you see, when we speak as socialists, then they say, how can a socialist be? But socialism doesn't mean equality. Socialism means equity. It's equity that we advocate, where those who can afford help to make life better for those who cannot afford. So it's important that we go back to the drawing board and look at other options of making this thing work. Roland, if you want to give me free education as a government, why do you decide if that free education should be public or private? That's another school of thought that is coming up. Because they are saying they are implementing the double track system because they don't have space. And they don't have space partly also because they have not completed the 150 schools that President Mahama started. But also, you have a situation where the private senior secondary schools are saying that they have the space. They can take these students. So as a government, you want to give them free education, bring them to our school. We'll train them and you pay us. So why is the government not willing to take that offer? If your intention is to give my ward free education, why do you determine that it has to, by all means, by force, be in the public school?
All right.
Is that not deception? Because the private school says, bring the wards for us to trade. So why don't you consider that?
You know, when we spoke to Echo Vincent Asefa, it looked as if we're recruiting, but in order to do the placement of the teachers, we have to wait. After the result and the placements have been done, then we know which ones have overflows. But we know the schools usually that have overflows. So we should be able to estimate that these number of schools, etc. We still seem to be toying with the numbers.
Well, I don't think so at all. I mean, clearly, ECHO didn't have some of the figures that you were asking for, particularly the number of schools that were going to be affected. And I don't have the figures.
You don't?
No, I don't. I don't have the figures.
So the number he was banding around was wrong?
There's no plan.
You see,
it's just as you
I disagree when you see there's no plan. Of course.
If there's a plan, you would have known the schools.
No, but I can't have the benefit of every information as I sit here.
Even the PRO.
And I'm being candid with you that I don't have the number of schools that are going to be running the multi-track system. Okay, but you see, what was insulting about the president's comment that professional naysayers, and we all know who he was making reference to.
Ivan Adaimensa and others. Yeah, we know.
Of course, people other than the MDC have spoken about the implementation. No, I don't have a problem. So I'm saying people have spoken against it. But those who have been most vociferous are the NDC. And you see, it's surprising to me why they always think that what Mr. Mahama said, that we have short memory, is applicable to everybody in this country. You've forgotten Asiedu Nkete and Collins Ludo and Co. their comments in 2008, 2009 regarding free SHS. We forgot that it was impossible, can never be done.
But that position
it takes
has since changed.
When did it change?
I think in the last election they all agreed on that.
Great.
Even there were some steps that were taken by government.
What does it mean
that they said it was
that they have never been against free SHS?
Yes. It is not
you
true.
kept shifting your position to respond to the Ghanaian people. That's it. That's what you did. Okay? Look, every policy that you seek to implement as a government would be opposed by some people. And it's fair. I agree. Okay? And the president clearly was not making references to the eminent Ghanaians that you mentioned when he refers to people as professional naysayers. We all know that it was you he was referring to. In any event, Roland, this free SHS policy, I think it's a good one. And I agree. When the finance minister makes reference to potentially the need for us to relook at it, because yes, possibly you and I can afford
that we shouldn't pay heed to the finance minister.
No, absolutely. But you see, and like I said,
he had no locus.
He has a view. But the
he's
position
the finance
of,
minister.
I don't have
his
a problem.
Is,
So of course, every discussion,
an isolated view.
You think when they go to cabinet, every decision that is taken is supported by everybody. But it's the majority that would then inform what government policy would be. And the policy of government is that every Ghanaian child that goes through a certain process passes an examination and accepts placement.
But that's the problem, because you have your finance minister, a key minister in your
using
cabinet.
himself as an example of his ability to pay.
No, he didn't.
He didn't use himself. He said
he created a scenario, then he used himself.
But he used himself as a basis for.
I think
what scenario did he create?
The scenario he created was that he said perhaps we need to have a certain thinking.
I don't have a problem. So
implementation.
Of course, he's entitled to have his view. But the position of government is that this is the way that we're going to go.
Very well.
Okay, and to suggest that the president was insulting and that you guys have offered some better alternative, for me, doesn't hold any water, because we all know the position that you've taken over the years. This is a good policy. All of us should support it. The multi-track is going to work effectively. Of course, I haven't read what the lady that you referred to in California put out, but other people.
She made a publication. It's a journal in the Economics Journal.
Yeah,
2009.
I haven't read it.
You should read it.
I would.
It's nice. I'm sure you have read it.
No, I have not. Well, like I said, I mean, I was basically in my constituency throughout the week.
I think now it's a widely circulated
I'll read it. Yeah.
All right.
But you see,
you wanted to make I wanted us to move to Mary.
Yes, we'll do that. But you see, I think that is important that
let me just give you 2 minutes so I'll move to
yes, we are factual about some of these things. You see, I don't know if my brother, in fact I know he can't he can't prove here that Asedun Ketia or Collins Dowda ever said free education was impossible. But you see, that is the propaganda they have been engaged in from day one. We all
live in this country. We heard them make comments variously on several platforms about the free SHS.
That is the propaganda they have engaged in from day one. Anytime a member of the NDC said, look, we were part of the drafters of the 1992 Constitution, and we put in the 1992 Constitution that education must be progressively free. And so therefore we cannot be against the, making of free SHS, I mean, senior high secondary school. We cannot be. But given the reality, let's hasten slowly. Then they jump to the rooftop and say, hey, they are against it.
But these were comments that were made publicly.
We have always said that we support free SHS. We think it is a policy that will help, train our human resource. So
what you defy is
but the difference has always been on how to implement it. We don't think the reckless implementation as is being done is the way to go.
Okay.
And we are being vindicated every day, because some of the reasons why we said let's hasten slowly are the reasons why this government is battling with the policy.
So until then, what happens to the people who have finished JHS?
You see,
they should stay at home.
Let me tell you what happens to them. As a government that had foresight, today as we speak, about 9 to 10% of space that is lacking has been contributed by the government that had foresight. The government that you say is against free SHS. We built about 50 schools and handed over to you. And those 50 schools are accommodating people. So it tells you that without those 50 schools, the problem you are battling with would have been worse. So that is a government that has foresight. That's a government that says that, look, let's introduce these things slowly whilst we put in the necessary infrastructure. It is that same government,
and the government that is asking
the existing
schools our infrastructure by getting more people enrolled in the schools hasn't got foresight.
It's sad.
Just so no Ghanaian stays at home. It's not
announcing free SHS. Announcing free SHS does not give secondary education. just announcing that we have implemented it, that's not guarantee secondary education. Education is much more than just people going to school and leaving at the end of 4 years.
Now, we know that from over the weekend, we got some new twists to whether there was a tacit approval or not, or some level of communication with the handlers of our Mary or representative of our Mary, whether they give some power of attorney or some orders for a representative here locally to negotiate with government as to how a new partner could come in to manage the Mary plant in itself. And we know that before Parliament rose, we had is it Mytilenius deal? Mytilenius deal, which of course we had the Committee for Mines and Energy raising all those necessary concerns and where we are today. There are some letters that seem to have surfaced. That is in twofold. One indicating that the directors or representatives or Ameri in the Gulf states may have been raising some issues about the discussions in the Ghanaian media, and subsequently thereafter we're told that power of attorney had been given to a Ghanaian representative. What do you make of it in the first place?
Of course, they're being mischievous. They're playing, feeding into what is clearly happening in our media space, and are trying to take some advantage. Because when I saw the letter that was circulating, suggesting that they had no knowledge whatsoever about this transaction, I was amazed.
Well, you were part of the team that negotiated with...
I wasn't. Okay. But I know what a novation agreement is. Okay? And you cannot novate an agreement without the consent or express involvement of the principal party, in this case, Ameri. But you've seen the letter that was subsequently put out there, clearly conflicting the position that was stated in the original letter, that they were not aware, in which they authorized somebody to act for them on that transaction. So what are they talking about? What are they talking about? Look, Roland, I mean, maybe they take us for some fools, but I don't think we are foolish at all. Okay? This transaction has been in the public domain. There's no secrecy about it. The document that went to Parliament did its job by raising the questions that needed to be raised. And subsequently, government has listened to the sentiments that people have expressed and has, if you like, put some brakes on the novation and amendment agreement. The novation was only to transfer Ameri's interest in the transaction to the Mytilenius company, and to amend it by extending the term of the agreement. That, I understand, is on hold as we speak. But it cannot be the case that Ameri was not aware of this
and it's
transaction.
on hold because...
Well, of course, people have spoken extensively about it. Cabinet has since, I understand, reviewed it, and some process, if you like, was not followed. The Attorney General, I understand, had no prior advice on the novation agreement, and also the Finance Minister's input was not sought. And so the needful will be done. I do not know what will happen going forward. But I'm sure that as we go along, some clarity will be provided so that we all are aware of.
So you don't know whether when Parliament resumes the agreement or...
I think that the necessary steps will be taken and the appropriate communication issued to that effect as to whether some, additional work is going to be done on it, or that this thing is going to be withdrawn permanently. But I think that it's a clear demonstration of a listening government. His Excellency the President, having weighed the sentiments of the people, having recalled the documents to be brought, and having reviewed it in cabinet, have taken a decision not to continue in the way and manner that was submitted to Parliament. And I think it's a bold and useful step that enriches the conversation.
But Suhini, he said listening government and etc. But we know we've come to this position or this point because apparently concerns had been raised far and wide, especially trying to point out the double standard that had an instance when in opposition some views had been expressed, and then all of a sudden we have a Minister of Energy that comes before Parliament with this innovation agreement, etc. But the reality is that the agreement was that bad or was not?
Well, you see, the comedy of errors that you see in this Ameri deal.
Why is the comedy of errors?
Is the I think clearest indication that posterity sometimes comes sooner than expected. Posterity indeed is here. You know, it's important for us to understand the context, you know.
That the concerns were raised.
The context of Ameri,
okay,
as it relates to the current happenings and discussions. There was an emergency need for us to fix our energy crisis. That energy crisis came about as a result of long neglect to our power sector. A president came to power and decided to fix it, took responsibility, and one of the considerations that, you know, he acted on was the procurement of the Ameri plant at 510 million, you know, US dollars. At the time, our friends in government said a couple of things. First, they said the emergency was almost over and we didn't need that plant as urgently as the government of the day thought we needed it. And so we shouldn't have been paying 510 million because it was overpriced and inflated. Now, as we speak, Roland, we actually have excess power as a country. About 700 megawatts, I'm told. We have excess power as a country. So clearly, at this stage, we don't even need the plant. They argued in the past that we didn't need the plant because we're getting out of the woods. And so to put the arrangement under emergency, leading to the 510 we're paying, was just outrageous. Today, as we speak, one can even say that without the plant, because of several other investments the previous government made, we will not have any challenge of, you know, Dumso in the meantime. Yet, they have renegotiated this and presented an agreement before Parliament that will lead to a doubling of the cost. Now, remember, the 510 was to be paid within a period of 5 years, after which the plant was going to become ours. I've already talked about how, at the time, the government explained that if you were going to buy it off the shelf at cash price, the cost, yes, would have been less than if you were engaged in the sort of agreement that we're engaging with Ameri, because we did not have the cash at the time to pay. So it had to be, maybe to put it, or, you know, for the layman to understand, high purchase. So when you finish paying after 5 years, then the plant becomes yours. They disagreed with us. Now they have extended the payment period to about 15 years. And then the cost is now about 1 billion US dollars. So that's why I'm saying that, you know, the comedy of errors, you know, is a clearest indication that posterity indeed comes sooner than expected. It is shameful, it is embarrassing, and the people in government, they know. And that is why many of them are beginning to run away from this deal. First of all, as we speak, Roland, let nobody deceive you that the bill, the proposal has been withdrawn from Parliament. It is still in Parliament. It hasn't been withdrawn. So you see the propaganda. You see the propaganda.
Parliament is on recess.
You see the propaganda of economic management team throws away. It is in Parliament as we speak. Again, we have heard.
You're saying that it's not been formally withdrawn.
We have heard. If they withdraw it, it's still eggs on their face. But as we speak now, I'm saying that there is no indication that it will even be formally withdrawn, because we have listened to the General Secretary of the NPP, who has the opportunity to sit at cabinet, argue strongly that the Energy Ministry is not backing off on this deal, and that we should not listen to the Statesman newspaper. And this is not the first time the government people who sit at cabinet are telling us to disregard Gabi Ochredako and his statesman. Remember, the finance minister also on the floor of parliament said we should not be listening to Gabi Ochredako and his statesman. When they, projected that VAT was going to increase, they said we shouldn't be listening to them. So I'm surprised that our discussions are now centered around publications either on Facebook or on the statesman, when we have been told not to listen to them by the same people who are really moving, and administering this country. The General Secretary of the party, John, what's the name? My good friend John Boydu, he sits in cabinet. The finance minister sits in cabinet. And these are the people who have told us that we should not take serious reports coming from. So why are we concentrating our discussion on a suggestion by these two outlets that the bill is going to be withdrawn?
Because
no,
I see the media that I made here.
I see the media.
I never made any reference to the news statement.
No, but you are also proceeding on the premise that it's going to be withdrawn. And I'm saying that we have not had any formal indication from government.
I said appropriate communications will be issued. The formal communication we have heard from government is that we should disregard those.
Are nearing.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that
he hasn't mentioned.
No, he doesn't sit at cabinet or in cabinet. John Boydu does.
He's a member of the communication.
Yes, but he doesn't sit in cabinet. John Boydu does, and John Boydu says that there is no indication yet that the government will withdraw it. So who should we believe? I will go for the one who is close to the president, and for that matter, who sits at cabinet. And remember, Roland, that the president gave executive approval to this deal. And as we speak, there's no letter that has also made the rounds showing that he has revoked that executive approval. Does he need Parliament to reconvene before he issues that letter? Does he? If indeed he wants to revoke that executive authority, he can do that today. He could have done that yesterday. But the president, without cabinet, consideration, gave executive approval with his signature that he accepts the deal. So don't listen to anyone who is telling you that the president was misled. The president has not told us that he was misled.
There's no official communication that's indicated.
Yes, so that's why. But you see, you find discussions being conducted around an impression that the president was misled. The president has not told us.
Or at least your
the
party.
president has not told us he was misled. The president communicates. The president communicates
Were
through.
you in government?
No, I wasn't. But I don't want to be distracted. The president communicates through his communication director. Has the communication director told us the president was misled? The letter of authority, the executive authority, is still what persists as we speak.
So you're saying the status quo remains?
That's what I said. The propaganda,
so it's propaganda.
The propaganda and the embarrassing,
But he says that the government is a listening government.
It's just a vindication of the NDC's position. What is equally gratifying, Roland, is the fact that as we speak, the Attorney General report, the committee that they set up, clearly has vindicated whatever took place under the NDC. And that they lied. You see, and that they lied about Ameri being a bad deal. But the Attorney General has indicated that no corruption took place.
That's not what the report said.
Let them prosecute them.
I have read a copy of the Attorney General's opinion.
Let them prosecute those who are corrupt.
What are you talking about?
No, let them prosecute them.
But that is not what
he says. He says that they should not go. They should not attempt anything with the Ameri deal because it is foolproof. You cannot charge anybody because people worked above board. That is the report.
That is not what the report says.
Let them prosecute the people who are corrupt. There is simply no wrongdoing.
Now we are seeing an extension, 15 years.
Roland, is there wrongdoing in that report? Has there been cited? Has anyone been cited?
A lot of comments that were
considered. Anyone been cited for wrongdoing?
Have you read it?
No.
Yeah, I've read sections of it.
What are you talking about? Look, nobody has, as we speak, been cited for any wrongdoing. Yes.
Who has been cited for wrongdoing?
As we speak.
You said people stole money. But you do not know because there is no exploration.
Roland,
it means you lied to the people of Ghana.
Look,
because no one, your own report, your own investigation has shown that no one stole money. But you lied to the people of Ghana that people stole money with the Ameri deal. Who has been cited for wrongdoing?
I said, as we speak, nobody has been cited. That doesn't mean nobody
the Bank of Ghana governor.
That is gratifying.
The truth of the matter is this: that
it is gratifying.
Look,
the Bank of Ghana governor.
Roland,
but they are attempting to steal one about $1 billion plus. You see, they are attempting to steal, and so if they are being caught, and they run, we shouldn't give them credit.
What we feel
a thief breaks into your house, you raise alarm and he runs and say, hey, very well, you have done
before the
well.
agreement was brought to the house.
No, wait. What we fail to appreciate is that, yes, government of Ghana under President Mahama signed a bad deal. There's no dispute. Because all the figures indicate that...
And the Ministry of Energy now wants to extend the bad deal.
You see,
and make it worse.
Hold on.
All right.
You see,
it's okay.
What we fail to appreciate is that
you will not comment again.
After the 5-year
I'm done. The
period
people of Ghana have
for which we're paying 510,
total shit comes to
the
mind.
asset has to be run for its lifetime of 15 years. Okay? It's not going to sit there idle.
At a cost.
In any event.
Have you seen the VRA report?
In any event.
Have you seen the VRA
report?
Have you
in
cited,
any event. Wait. Roland.
Mr. Mensah, have you cited the VRA report? That's indicating
he makes reference to the
that
fact
the VRA can manage that.
We have excess capacity as we speak. But all the statements that Mr. Mahama made was that he wants to get Ghana
local banks
a net exporter of power.
Local banks.
And so you sign all sorts of power purchase agreements. In excess of God knows how many.
No. We're not discussing.
Okay, so the point I'm making is this: that regardless of whether we need Ameri now or not, this country under your watch signed agreements that was going to put us at 5,000 megawatts. What were we going to use the excess electricity?
We're talking Ameri.
What were we going to use the excess?
You're saying Ameri is a bad deal.
I'm saying production to
local banks. Let's not do this, gentlemen. Okay. It's okay. Local banks.
You don't know the impact.
Local banks are to receive some support from the Bank of Ghana. That is the banks that have undertaken their due diligence activities,
properly managed,
and then also
have not breached any regulatory
and all that.
Yes.
And the Bank of Ghana governor has been announcing that. Now, I know Karen Lay is on Joy FM also explaining this further. But it speaks volumes. Let me start with you. And that, well, some of the banks have been doing well after all. And then if you look at the Act 930 of the Bank of Ghana, there's all indication in there that, well, the banks can draw down from a certain pool. And the Bank of Ghana is obliged to do that, definitely.
Well, I don't see us having so much time left, but this is an equally 5 minutes, important, subject that I would have loved to have some extended time to look at. Because you see, what is happening to our banking sector is disturbing, and there's really a need for something to be done. But, when you look at it politically, and that's what I want to do first of all, before I look at the other issues. Yes, we are talking regulation. You know that there was an assessment of the banks in 2015. Now, that assessment revealed the challenges that some of these banks were faced with. There was no proof or evidence that the government of the day was responsible or checked its responsibility, and that is why the banks were in the state that they were in. There was no proof. Nobody also had proof that these bad things that were uncovered in the banking sector started within a particular regime. But guess what? Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, our vice president, blamed everything that was happening on President Mahama and actually indicated that about 8 banks were collapsing under Mahama's mismanagement. In fact, he zeroed in on Mahama, even though there was no evidence that this deterioration started under Mahama. There was no evidence that Mahama contributed directly in any way to the deterioration. But he zeroed in on Mahama and said the banks were collapsing under Mahama. Today, will it be fair for one to say that 7 banks collapses under Nanado and Bawumia? Just using the same logic that if you were in charge and these troubles were happening, then you were superintending over the bad state. Now, if they were collapsing, now they have collapsed.
They've been saved.
In fact, they have been saved. Really.
Absolutely.
You see, you will have your take. That's what I'm saying. It's important.
We don't have much time.
You see, that is the way I mean, that is how I find it repugnant. When people play politics on one end and then come and tell you don't play politics. We all know. And it's sad that we don't have time. I would have given you evidence that indeed if President Mahama at the time was, I mean, if he was still in power and took these same decisions, the people who are preaching, you know, regulations, implementations, would have perhaps caused the assassination of President Mahama. Well, because if indeed, at the time that he, as president,
do you agree?
No, the Bank of Ghana.
Let me ask you: do you agree that is the Bank of Ghana that's supposed to be
yes,
responsible
I'm saying that
for
at the time that the Bank of Ghana, at the time the Bank of Ghana did an assessment, and these problems came out, he was already blamed for it. He was already blamed. So can you imagine if he was to supervise, if he was still in power?
It would have been political capital. Would have
yes, it would have been political capital. But as NDC, once again, I will say it, we are responsible. We know these are decisions that have to be taken, but we have problems with the way some of the decisions are taken.
Yet your party
let us not deceive people.
Are all over the place.
You see, let's not deceive people.
Our own colleague Adongo and Co are all over the place saying all sorts of things. What makes you responsible?
You see, this will not. Let's not pretend that this will not lead to decline in investment fund for businesses. And when that happens, you are going to have businesses becoming stagnant and maybe even laying off. Forget about even the layoffs within the banking sector. We already know that the two banks have resulted in about 1,000 people going home and still going home. Now, these other 5 banks, will lead to more going home. But the bigger implication is the fact that when businesses don't get investment funds to expand, those businesses are also going to eventually do what? You know, either shrink or collapse. You also have a situation where
you said you are just saying one or two things.
Yeah, when the confidence in the banking sector is going to be under.
You are a member of the HAG board there. You are a member of them. The first batch of HAG programs are off to Mecca. No problems recorded.
You don't know that.
You see,
you should check further.
Of course, what he's doing is expected.
What am I doing?
All the things that you are saying, the politics of it. Suspected.
Because you started doing some politics with it, and yet you are pretending it's not political.
Is supposed to be an independent.
When you have sacked all the governors there.
Entity.
They sacked all the governors there and appointed 3. They sacked them.
You see,
independent.
We can always go back. Dr. Baumia was a deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana. What did you do to him?
He went to campaign.
What did you do to him? You sacked him.
He went to campaign.
Didn't
you just said that it's an independent body, okay, and then you wanted somebody who went to campaign to come back and be there.
Yes, so you sacked him.
Had the people you have sacked, did they go to campaign? The people you said the 3.
So did you sack him or you didn't sack him? You sacked him.
Dr. Baumia
he took leave of
absence. Campaign.
And then when he came back, of course, it was within his right.
A bank that is supposed to be apolitical. Somebody goes to run for office on a political party ticket. Are you serious? Let's be honest.
Independent.
Yes.
But they report to officials of government.
That's why you sack them.
Okay.
And appointed your people.
The finance minister under the Bank of Ghana Act is responsible directly. And so everything that is going on within the banking
now this money space, that we're giving them.
Everything that goes on within the banking space, the finance minister has oversight responsibility.
Right.
So if a blame was put at the doorstep of Mr. Mahama, that his government had supervised the rot that was in the banking sector, it was appropriate.
You have collapsed 8.
These steps that have been taken
has
been to save those banks from collapse.
Okay, he's a member of parliament for a second. He's also a lawyer. And then I have Al Hassan Suhini, member of parliament for Tamale North.